Hello, everybody, and Merry Christmas to all. Or something like that. Whatever. It's a holiday. You can call it the solstice, the Yule, Merry Christmas, whatever. We are in the middle of a horrible pandemic and in lockdown again. So, obviously, we can't travel, we can't do anything. So, I'm actually stuck somewhere at the moment, which really, it's kind of nice being stuck outside of the city, but this kind of happened after lockdown. So, anyway, needless to say, we've got a product that many of us in the wireless industry were curious about that came out called the Faraday Defense RF cage. So the whole purpose of this is for your router. It's for your router to protect you from RF problems. I'll show you guys the website, but I'll go on here. Actually, I'll pull up a Chrome window. Or actually, I'll just do it on here, because this is actually set to connect to this for our testing purposes. Alright, so let's see what the Faraday Defense, let's see here.
Moments later.
Faraday Defense RF cage. Here we go. Faraday Defense, where is it? Faraday Defense, here we go. EMF cage. And by the way, thank you Faraday Defense for sponsoring today's video. You can pick up one of these if you really want to on Faraday Defense's website, and that is shop.faradaydefense.com. So let's see here. So if I go to their products section, boxes, I think we want boxes. Faraday cages. Is it Faraday cages? No, I want the boxes, and I think I want the router box. Alright, so this guy right here is the XL, I believe. It's $189. We needed something big to be able to put this Linksys dual-band MU-MIMO router into, okay? So this guy here is $189. Now let's see what it says the description is on here. Operating safely throughout your day is important to us. RouterGuard 2 is here, and we redesigned it with aesthetics and performance in mind. Now you can place your router easily into the RouterGuard while balancing the ability to reduce harmful EMF and still being able to connect and operate seamlessly with your devices.
NANI?!
So, I guess, let's see here, let's go back into the description again. So, seamlessly with your devices. There's more at the bottom. I'll read through some more of this so you guys have some better context, okay? The all-new Router Shield 2 is a two-piece router shield with a black wrinkle powder-coated frame chassis and a heavy-gauge perforated aluminium shielding housing with a rubber plastic grommet to direct wiring into the housing. This is the next generation of the RouterGuard, designed to protect your environments from EMF and RF waves emitted from routers and boosters. The Router Shield 2 is a designer-grade Faraday cage that blocks approximately 85% of the EMF or RF waves emitted from Wi-Fi routers. It's perfectly balanced to stand upright or to sit sideways on a shelf, table, or desk. It has an aesthetic appeal and will fit seamlessly into your decor while managing the waves in your environment. Router Shield 2 is simple and easy to use. Unplug your router's cables and take a picture to remember where each cable was plugged into. Slide up the perforated shielding housing and drop your router into the Router Shield 2 chassis. Reconnect the cables through the rubberized plastic grommet and slide the shielding housing back into the chassis. The Router Shield 2 is made for most small Wi-Fi routers that fit into a 10 by 9 by 3.5 enclosure. Please measure your router and make sure it is at least 1 inch of space for the cables to fit. The Router Shield 2 XL fits large residential and commercial grade routers, blah blah blah. It mentions Comcast. With the success of our first generation Router Shield and positive feedback from our valued customers, we decided to build on what we had and make it even better. The Faraday Router Shield 2 was born balancing cost, aesthetics, and performance. We have delivered a product that will offer best market, blah, blah, blah. Every year, routers are getting more and more integrated into our everyday lifestyle and connection to the world. Faraday Defense and our customers believe that we need to shield our bodies against these waves. Here's the good part, right? Put out by routers and modems as they are operating with more powerful frequencies. While studying a redesign of our successful first-generation Wi-Fi guard, we decided not to just come out with one-size guard as we had done in the past, but to come up with 2 sizes to cover small and large routers offered on the market. Router Shield 2 is our answer to shielding waves in the home and office, but not entirely blocking them, offering a safe connection to the rest of the world. Now with higher gauge aluminium shield, the Router Shield 2 is more balanced with form and function. The chassis is black. Oh, so it's a lot of repetitive information here. Okay, so basically what they're claiming is that this thing here will protect you from the evil RF emitted by this router here and stop you from being poisoned, and that your babies will come out with 3 heads, you'll be sterile, and snakes will crawl out of your rectum. So that's kind of what this thing is supposed to be protecting you from, because these things are horrendous and potentially will give you brain tumors and cognitive dissonance and all sorts of wonderful BS, okay, right? That's what this horrible thing can do to you. Just an FYI, most consumer-grade routers are locked at less than 18 dBm, EIRP. So what that means is that they are locked to a very low power output level. We're talking like a fraction of a watt, okay? To put that into perspective, 1 watt works out to about roughly 33 dBm. These things max out at about 18. High-powered indoor APs are kind of at 20, but there's caveats. You need to actually take that router or AP, and put it somewhere where it's not near your head. The whole idea of that is that you won't cause headaches or any kind of other problems that RF can cause. In fact, a high-powered 2.4 or 900 megahertz signal has the ability to actually damage your retinas. It can actually cause headaches and that. But what that is that's because 2.4 resonates at the same frequency as water. Okay, 2400 megahertz is the resonant frequency of water. So what can happen with most devices, even on towers that human beings are allowed to work around, is if you're exposed to a high power, it'll actually heat the water molecules inside of you, inside of your brain, inside of your body, and all that. So what can happen is, and this is under high output powers, by the way, if you were like putting your head in front of a dish, or by like a 10 watt transmitter, and I'm saying 10 watt because that's around the spot that you'd start to see the problem. I mean, technically, if you were long exposure to something like 3 watts, which is like huge, yeah, you start seeing migraines, having vision trouble and stuff, but that's not permanent. As soon as you're removed from that ecosystem and you have a couple of days rest to recover from it, you're back 100%. So this stuff here is way below those operating ranges. In fact, you could sleep with this over your head, and chances are it's not going to do anything. And all these power outputs have been determined by massive scientific study done by the entire community out there. There's entire university departments that are dedicated to the effects of RF on biological entities, right? So this isn't just a couple of dudes who at Linksys saying, yeah, our router's safe. Dude, there's a massive scientific consensus in all the universities that handle technology that study these sort of stuff. And if you're going to say, well, you know what, they all work for the man, pull your head out of your ass, okay? This is pure science, okay? So what today's experiment's going to be is to take a look at this Faraday Defense RF enclosure and what it is. And we've already read the studies and what it claims, right? So this is it, okay? So what we have here is basically a cage, an aluminum cage, okay? I believe this is steel. This is aluminium, right? Okay, so if we look at the holes on here, I think I measured them to be about 3 millimeters. So that's about, I think, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's around 10 gigahertz. So 2.4 gigahertz is 12 centimeters. 5 gigahertz, I think, is 3 centimeters. You're going to shred me in the comments, I'm sure, because I'm probably screwing this up. I'm pretty sure that 10 gigahertz is 3 millimeters. So correct me if I'm wrong on that. But anyway, the point that I'm getting at is that this isn't scientifically matched to any of the frequencies present here, which is from, I think, 2412 to 2462 and 5180 to 5824. That's the full operating range for indoor routers. And indoor home Wi-Fi is also limited because you're not allowed to use all the unibands. It's, I think, 5180 to 5265 is the lower band that this one uses. And then the upper bands start at 5500 and go up to 58. So that's the operating range that these guys work in. So the Faraday Defense here, let's take a closer look at this now. So we've got this steel wrap and the aluminium thing here. So you've got a big hole in the back of this. It's a nice rubberized grommet, okay? So this is non-conductive. These are both conductive. This is just stuck on here to make it pretty. You run your cables through it, right? Okay, so we run our cables through that. And then there's this cage here, and as you can see at the front, it's got a little gap here. This is for the foldability. Because what they'll do is they'll take a sheet, a big flat sheet, and then either a water or laser cutter just goes out and cuts the pattern on it so that it'll fold. So this is just basically cut in a way, not scientific in any stretch of the imagination, in a design perspective. It's cut in a way that it'll fold specifically into this. So the back is open to allow all the cables through it, right? There's minor folds on it so that it seals behind the framing here. And then we've got the bottom being open, and then the front, this is basically just cut in a way that this will fold over and meet this side behind the actual front plate here, as you can see. So we slide this thing together. That's basically what you get. So this is blocked in the front, this is blocked on all the sides, but then there's a gap right here that, you know, technically RF can be waveguided through, and you can waveguide through that, and realistically this isn't specifically tuned to the frequencies in any scientific way that are present on these routers. Okay, so now that we've gotten all that bullshit out of the way, let us reinstall the router. So, we have taken a Linksys WRT 3200 ACM, and I've installed OpenWRT on it so that I can specifically set the transmit to a specific point. So, what I've done is I've locked it at 10 dBm, 10 milliwatts, okay? That's what this guy's locked at in both 5.8 and 2.4. I've got the frequency that this guy is set to operating at 2432, which is the center of the 2.4 gig band, and the other frequency for 5 gig is at 5755, which is roughly the middle ground for the 5 gigahertz band. So I'm going to place this on the table like so, because we're going to be doing an experiment here, okay? So we're going to do some testing. We're going to check out the signal levels with and without the cage here on the table, and we're going to do some latency tests, okay? So I've got a ping tool up on here, and I've got the actual Wi-Fi connection on here as well so we can see it. So first things first, though, I've been graphing. So we're going to wait for this thing to fully boot up. I think it's almost booted. I'm going to reconnect it back over to test. We're going to do 2.4 gigahertz first. So we've got the cage here. It's on the floor. So if we look on the screen here, we can now see what the signal strengths are. So I'm logging this in LinSSID, which is a Linux Wi-Fi analysis tool that allows you to look at all the aspects of a specific connection. In this case here, we're using a couple of factors here. We're looking at the RSSI and we're looking at the signal. So right now, I'm showing at 2.4 gigahertz. Let's see here. I'm showing the signal strength is a -6 on here. Let me put this antenna down. There we go. We've got a -2 on here. So this is set for 10 dB output right now, okay? There we go. I think it's starting to balance to where it should be. So we're seeing -18 on the 2.4, -27 on the 5 gigahertz, okay? So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at what our connection is. So the Wi-Fi is showing us 144 megabits per second, and let's do a quick ping test. I'm going to do 50 packets because we don't want this to... Actually, you know what? Let's do 20 because we don't want it to wait too long. I've already done long run analysis, which I've put in a text file, which I will post a link to it. I will put it on the Facebook page so you guys can pull down the text document with my test results. Okay, so we're going to start pinging now with the cover off on 2.4. This is our 2.4 test, okay? Let me just, we're connected on 2.4, connection information, there we go. So we're going to go on 2.4, we're going to look at the signal strength, and I'm going to start pinging, and we're going to do 20 packets. Alright, so I'm pinging at, it's bouncing. I started at 30, you can see on the screen here, 52, 2.7, it's bouncing all over the place, right? As high as 113, there we go, 6, 2, 30, it's all over the place, okay? And that's just because the router's modulation is all over the place while it's trying to balance this connection. Okay, so again, the signal's still showing as a -7, -30, okay? So now let's put this back on. Alright, so we're going to put the Faraday Defense on here, and we're going to do this in 2 places. I'm going to do this here in the living room first, and then I'll go to the kitchen, where we've got a couple of walls in the way. There we go. So now the cage is on. It's in the exact same spot. Okay, so now if we look at the screen here, we're seeing approximately a 10 dB difference. Okay, so there we go. Yes, it's approximately 10 dB. So we've jumped up to a -23 on the 2.4 and a -40 now on the 5 gig. And our 2.4 is still at 144 megabits per second. We're going to do another ping test now. So the first ping test results with the cage open here, right next to it, was minimum 2.09 milliseconds, average 30.68 milliseconds, maximum 125, successful packets 100, and that's at 20 by 20. So 20 packets. Now let's do the test again here. I'm going to ping. Alright. Okay, and it looks like the results may actually show up nearly identical. Mind you, by the time that I'm done this ping test, my brain will have forgotten everything I did in the first ping test. Alright, so now we've completed 20 packets. Minimum 2.09, average 41.79, maximum 129 milliseconds. 100% success. We're still at 144. We're at negative 25 on the 2.4, negative 37 on the 5. Okay, so that's the test there for 2.4. So now let's do the same thing. I'm going to actually move this laptop because it's going to be a bit of a longer video because I'm trying to be thorough on this testing for part 1. Part 2, we're going to be shipping this off to a friend's lab. I'm not going to announce whose lab it is yet, but it's going to be one of my colleagues in the industry who has a full RF testing facility, where they're going to do a full battery of frequency analysis on this to see actually what signals this will attenuate in both EMF and RF. Alright, so this thing is now connected to the 5 gigahertz radio on here. I'm going to bring up the connection information on the laptop again. So it's showing right here that I'm connected at 173 megabits per second. And caged, we're at negative 21 on 2.4, negative 36 currently on the 5 gig. So I'm going to start a ping test now on 5 with the cage on. Alright, so we started off 38, then we went to 61. We've got a 417. You see the results here on the OBS, of course, which Yuya is going to do whatever magic he does to put things where they need to be on the channel. Alright, on the edit. There we go. Minimum is 2.54. Maximum is 1.06. Average is 33.60. Packets transmitted 20. Packets received 18. 90% success rate. Okay, so now let's take this off. So this is all the coffee table testing. After I'm done this test, I'm going to go to the living room, or the kitchen there, and I'm going to test it from there. Alright, so we'll give Linside just a second to recalibrate so we can get an accurate reading of the RF, because this tool is by no stretch of the imagination in real time, and it's not entirely accurate, but it's accurate enough for our purposes in this testing. Again, when it goes to a proper RF lab, we'll see some magic. Alright, so now we're looking at negative 14 on 2.4, negative 24 on the 5 gigahertz, and my Wi-Fi connection says 173 megabits per second. So now let's start our ping test again. Alright, so remember, I'm not going to remember the results from the previous tests, so you can compare them while watching the video here. So I'll just read off the results again, and obviously you're going to be seeing all of what I'm seeing in the OBS capture. Alright, there we go, 20. Cool. Alright, so 2.39 milliseconds minimum, average 39.17, maximum 100, 20 packets transmit, 20 packets received, 100%. So we can see right there that with the testing that we just did, our very basic, simple testing, that what we're actually seeing is that this gives you an attenuation of about 10 dB across both channels, like both bands, 5 gig and 2.4. We're also seeing that with the 5 gig, when the Faraday Defense is on, when this is actually closed up, it's actually causing packet loss. So that's a bit of a problem. Alright, so now we've done the coffee table test. I'm going to pick this laptop up. We're going to move into the kitchen, and I'm going to do the next set of tests in here, while my friend is going to relay information to me. So the first test we're going to do is without the cage, then I'm going to get him to put the cage back on. We're going to do the exact same test we just did with 2.4 and 5. Of course, because we're already on 5 open, we're going to start with 5 open, and then we'll do 5 caged, 2.4 caged, and 2.4 open. See, it's just time efficiency. Okay, so right now we're wide open. So let me grab the laptop here, and I'm going to grab the camera, bring it over to the kitchen. Or do I actually need to bring the camera to the kitchen? I don't think so. Why? Why do we not need the camera in the kitchen? Because as long as my microphone's recording, that's the most important thing, because you're going to be looking at OBS anyway. So let me grab the microphone instead, and try to walk to the kitchen without my pants falling off, because I broke my belt. Alright, so now, ooh, the audio just changed so much in here. I'm going to point the microphone over here in the corner and point it at me. Alright, we're still recording good? Good, good. Alright, so now, I didn't just turn my thing off. No good, I didn't. Okay, so now we're in the kitchen, and we're going to do we're looking at our signal now, so we're seeing a pretty even negative 52 on the 5 and, negative 52 on the 24, the 2.4, negative 57 on the 5 gig, and it's going to bounce a little bit right now, right? Okay, so here we go. There's our start. Negative 43, negative 61. So we're about 20 dB apart in the kitchen, roughly. Okay, and right now it's open cage. We're seeing 173 megabits per second on a 20 megahertz channel over the Wi-Fi. Let's start our ping test. Here we go, we're pinging 20 packets, and this is the open test. Okay? And one of the reasons why I have the screen set up the way it is, I know you can't entirely see the graph, nor does Lin SSID allow you to save graphs, which is kind of stupid, but whatever, it's free. But in OBS here, you're able to actually see the signal, okay? And you're able to actually see the pings, which is the most important part, okay? So our minimum is 2.10 milliseconds, average 24.91, maximum 93.8, 20 packets transmitted, 20 packets received, 100 successful, okay? So this is with it off. Hey dude, throw the shell on the cage, please. Dun 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 dun, we shall now cage the router. Alright, so y'all buckled up? Alright, cool. Alright, so he's all buckled up nicely. Alright, so what kind of a change are we going to see in our signal strengths now? Alright, so we've jumped to a negative 57 on the 2.4 and a negative 77 on the 5 gig. And of course, that's going to vary because of environmental factors, okay? Now, let's look, oh, look at that. Did you see the dip on the 5 gig there? Now remember, we're operating at 10 milliwatts, 10 dB, so that's 8 dB less, essentially roughly half of what we're allowed to run on home routers, okay? So you can see now that the 5 gigahertz has been greatly affected. So let's do a ping test now. There we go. So we're pinging 20 packets. There we go. Okay, cool. So 2.5 second minimum milliseconds, average 25, maximum 101, 20 sent, 20 received, 100% packet success. And that is caged now. Okay, cool. All right, hopefully I didn't brain fart. I think I did do this without and with. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to do that one more time without. Yeah, I'll just do it one more time. Here we go. All right, take the cage off and let's do another ping test. God, this is what the holidays do to you. Excessive drinking, right? All right, so we're at negative 79, negative 58. All right, so we'll wait for this thing to recalibrate with the cage off now. Negative 47, negative 54. So, oh, negative 45, negative 65. So you can see roughly 10 dB, right? Now let's do our ping test one more time. And now you can see that our speed on the 5 gig at 20 megahertz is back up to 173. So yeah, this definitely affects your signal quality. And I think the reason why it affects it primarily is because it's, let's see here. Well, it's literally a Faraday cage. So this is attenuating the signal that comes out of it. And something else which you need to consider as well. There we go. So minimum 2.49, average 39.04, maximum 121, 100% 2020. So you have to remember that not only are we attenuating the signal by sticking this thing in a tin can, like a trailer, but you're also affecting how clean the spatial streams are. So you've got your streams coming from the device to the AP and vice versa. If those things are rattled around inside of a tin can and bounced and diffused, that can cause problems with modulation, especially once you get into the more higher density modulations or encapsulations like, QAM rather than MCS, right? Okay, so now that we've done the 5 gig, let's slip over to 2.4. So I'm going to connect to test 2.4 gigahertz. All right, we're now on the 2.4. Okay, so right now the cage is off. And we are negotiated at 144 megabits per second at a 20 megahertz channel. Negative 43 on 2.4, negative 58 on 5.8. Let's do a ping test. All right, all over the place. And remember, this is a Linksys WRT 3200 ACM running OpenWRT with the transmit fixed at 10 dB. So 10 dBm or 10 milliwatts. There's nothing special about that number. I just wanted the power down so that we could actually see significant changes. Alright, so with the cage off, you can see that it was bounced a little bit lower than, 144, but 144 is the maximum for wireless N at this channel width, okay? So we got 2.38 minimum, average 43.18, maximum 106, packets transmitted 20, packets received 20, successful packets, 100%. Okay, cool. Alright, cage the beast, please. So we're negative 49 on 2.4, negative 66 on 5.8. So my cohort is going to cage this thing, and we're going to see the difference that we jump into. Cool. All right, now we'll wait a few seconds here for it to recalibrate, to gather some fresh information now that the cage is back on it. Okay, so you can see now at 2.4 we've got a negative 61 on the for the signal strength, and negative 74 on the 5 gig. Okay, we're negotiated at 144 megabits per second in the 2.4 Oh, wait a second. Oh, sorry about that, guys. No worries, you get the idea. Let me switch that back over to 2.4. Connection information, sorry. That was just the window here because it doesn't refresh automatically, but don't worry about it. Okay, so here we go. Now is where you're going to see the difference anyway. So now it's caged. So we're getting 144 megabits per second, okay? This is at least what it would have looked like with the cage off anyway, so who cares? Alright, so ping. Let's see what we get now. Alright. And remember, this is the test with the simple home router. We don't have an AP in here, we have a home router. This, when it gets properly tested in an RF lab, you will see the results from that. And of course, all the documented results will end up on the internet so you guys can download them, okay? And then you can, I think I'll put them in like a, probably a spreadsheet that you guys can get to in open format. Alright, so with the cage on, we're at negative 61, negative 58 on the 2.4, negative 72 on 5.8, 2.4 millisecond minimum, ping time, average 38, maximum 118, 20, 20, 100. Alright, so that's all my personal testing right now, basically all that I can do for personal testing. So you can see, I'm going to move back over to the couch actually, 1 second here. Because I probably should be in frame when we do the my opinion on the device, the test results, right? I'm just going to move back over here. I'm going to put my microphone back down here. So it's just out of the shot, yet pointing at me. There we go, we're still recording. That's not bad. What's the length of this video so far? It's 30 minutes. So it's 30:18 right now, so let's see what our magical editor whittles it down to. Alright, so now that we're back over here, I'm going to plug this thing in because always plug your laptop in. Exercise it, yes, but keep it topped up, otherwise you're going to go to a tower site and your laptop will be dead and you'll be cursing God. Okay, so what do I see from this? I see that it attenuates the signals about 10 dB. I see as well an issue with SWR, standing wave ratio, because when this thing is actually caging your router, let's take a look at the inside of this thing now. Do an actual physical analysis of this. Close this for a second. So if we take a look at the router from the face, technically you would actually have this like this, but I wanted it to be very, very standard of how it would be installed in here anyway, right? Not that the antennas matter anyway if you're going to do something like this. So we had this position in here like so. So take a look at it from this angle, and I'm going to rotate it a little bit so you guys get a better idea of how it's positioned inside of the enclosure. Now if I can hold this thing properly, let me see if I can hold it and then tilt it sideways. See that? So that's approximately how it's going to look inside. Okay, so now let's put this aside for a second. Let's take a look at how it's going to be positioned inside of here. So this is going to be down like this. So we will put this inside of here like so. So now if you take a look at the way that it's positioned inside of here, you can see that the antennas for the side, I believe that the side ones are 5.8 and the top ones are 2.4. They are going to be completely blocked by the housing here. So at the back, this one antenna, half of it is going to be through here. And the 2.4s they can't fully open anyway inside of this thing. So if you can probably see inside of here. Should be good, I hope. Yeah, it's basically just a tin can. But you could do the same thing by wrapping your router in tinfoil. In fact, wrapping your entire router in tinfoil will do more for signal attenuation than this thing will as it sits on your desk. And in fact, if you really want to kill the signal even more, if you actually took the ground on this, so if you look here, these guys here have shielded Ethernet ports, okay? So you can use a shielded cable in here, which then, the shield on these guys is actually bonded to the outer ring, which is the negative on the barrel connector here, which then carries through to this, and I need to test this to know for sure, this power pack, but typically, yeah, this one's non-polarized. So there is no true ground on this device unless you actually specifically ground it or use some type of grounding peripheral. Otherwise, if this actually had a polarized jack, chances are the neutral would have been a ground reference, okay? So that being said, if you were to actually take this whole thing and connect the ground plane on here, like take an Ethernet jack that's shielded, tie a wire onto it, or even tie a wire around this and connect this to this, that will actually have better signal attenuation because this now becomes part of the ground plane, the reference plane, that the RF chipset itself is utilizing. So without this actually referencing or being bonded to the actual ground reference plane on the actual router itself, all it's doing is it's just self-attenuating. It's causing diffusion and, screwing with the SWR. If you really want to, I'm going to have one of my colleagues who specializes in the actual physics nature of this aspect explain the rest of it. So this is actually going to be a multi-part video. This is part 1. There's going to be a part 2 and maybe a part 3, depending on who's willing to take this when I ship it to them for the testing, okay? But, yeah, that's really all there is to it. So, you can see now where the antenna is actually on the plastic there. It just shoots straight through, depending on the router design, right? So, I don't think there's anything more for me to say, except this is basically just a padding device. It's a signal attenuation device. Does it filter out harmful RF? No. In fact, this thing, all that it really does is just attenuate the signal on it. So, its claims that it's not affecting your Wi-Fi connection, but yet reducing the amount of energy off of it, are kind of a moot point, because you can do the exact same thing by turning down the output power of your router or your access point. You can literally turn it down and have the same effect of this. If you turn it down 10 dB on the 2.4 and on the 5 channels, it's going to do exactly what this device does, making this device kind of moot. As far as RF goes, this thing is not specifically tuned to any one frequency. This is literally just a metal cage with no RF tuning at all to it, designed to attenuate a signal. It's a tin box. So as far as the claims that this is isolating harmful radiation and allowing the Wi-Fi communications to go through it, specifically, I'm also going to call BS on that as well. So if you wanted to make one of these yourself, go find a steel or aluminum or tin bread box, put your router in the bread box and close it. You're going to get the exact same effects. Otherwise, just turn down the TX power if you're so concerned about the RF off your router, which I'm telling you right now, for consumer devices, unless this was right next to your bed and you're sleeping with it like this, there would be no concerns, okay? The only concern I would have if this was this close to your head is you're going to start developing migraines and stuff. Long-term RF has not been attributed to cancers and whatnot, but anecdotally, I will I'm not going to side with anybody on this, okay? But I will say, anecdotally, there have been lots of people that have had long-term RF exposure that have seen detrimental effects, okay? So, but the science concludes that a lot of this is just hooky. The RF constraints that are applied to consumer devices in home, and even tower devices, when we're climbing towers working on them, are ranges that are safe for biological entities to operate around. Okay, so this is all designed to be safely within constraints that won't harm us, okay? And you can trust the governing bodies that determine this, because they're all independent research, right? They're all universities and whatnot. So, like I said, this is safe. Turn it down if you're concerned. This thing here, this is, in my opinion, snake oil. So, would I buy one of these for $189 to protect myself? No. You would actually be further ahead, in my opinion, to do a little bit of reading about how to set your router up and about the impact of different signal strengths. Just turn it down if you're concerned, okay? Or, you know what? Another cool trick, if you don't want to have Wi-Fi at high powers polluting your house, put in more access points. So you got a larger home, if you put in like a few smaller access points and turn the power way down on them, you're going to decrease their broadcast range, okay, without affecting their signal sensitivity. So your devices will just jump to the nearest AP then, and you'll have less RF being broadcast in your home. Does that make more sense? Could be. These are all just things, okay? This is harmless. So anyway, that's the end of today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe below. Tell your friends, because we're trying very hard to build the channel up. And we have a Patreon for those of you that want to help feed us. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed. I can't wait to get part 2 and potentially part 3 out to you guys. So if there's only a part 2, don't be disappointed. All right, and thank you, and then thanks to all of our Patreons that help make this happen. Ciao, guys. I want to make a foil hat. There, I'm protecting myself, protected from the dangers of RF. Woo!